The advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. For your specific situation, you will need to get in contact with your local OT, vehicle modifier or mobility dealer and set yourself up with an assessment or a trial. Trials really do put you in the driver's seat, so get out there and get one going. Before we get started, we just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible: Mobility Engineering, Driving Well, and Williams OT. This show takes time and money to put together, and we are forever grateful for their passion for our industry. Okay, enough of the business. Let's get on to the interview with Jenny and Brad.
G'day and welcome to the Drive Able podcast. My name is Brad Williams from Williams OT in South Australia, and joining me as always is Jenny Gribben from Driving Well in Queensland. How are you, Jenny?
Good, Brad. Hello. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm excited. Again, another podcast has come around and we get to interview someone great about their driving stories. Hey, this one's a unique episode, and if you're thinking about hiring a car when you go away on holidays, this might be the episode for you to listen to. But it's a great episode to listen to as well, because I know this person and she is very articulate and is great to talk to. So very excited to get her on. We're going to be talking to her about dual...
Who is it, Brad? Who is it?
Oh, well, Noella Angel is her name. Noella Angel is her name, and she's a para-athlete, and she does a para-equestrian and a para-ice hockey, and she's actually a whip-cracking specialist, and does all kinds of events around horse riding and so forth. But we're talking to her about a very unique license. This is about getting 2 modifications on your license, so you've got more options to hire cars when you go away on holidays. It's a very unique story. It's one that people are going to go, hang on, what? Can you actually do that story? And the answer is yes, and let's find out how. How is that possible, and how has she been able to do that? Are you excited for this one, Jenny?
I am. I think we just, there's always got to be that little disclaimer, right? So she's done that in South Australia. So that's been able to go through the Department of Transport within South Australia. I think anyone in other states, so she was the first, I believe, to have a dual modification license. But I haven't experienced that in Queensland. It certainly sounds like it's mechanically possible, but based on and driving performance wise, it's possible, dependent on the person. But obviously you've got to check that in your own state.
100%. Yeah, make sure that you do. But should we get her on?
Let's get her on and find out how she did it.
Mobility Engineering is Australia's leading automotive product supplier for disability customers. We have installers all across the country, over 100 of them, and we have the largest range of mobility products for vehicles in the country. Get in touch with Mobility Engineering for any of your driving solutions.
Hi everyone, I'm really excited to get into today's episode. Today we are talking with Noella. Noella is going to share her story about her condition and about her driving, but also really specifically about her license and how unique that kind of is. And we're really excited to get into this conversation. Noella, hi, how are you?
I'm really good. How are you guys?
Yeah, very, very well. Now, what we wanted to do is get you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background and tell us about what you do outside of driving to start off with.
Yeah, I'm Noella Angel. I'm a para-equestrian mainly. Recently, I've stepped into para-ice hockey as well. I was born with a very rare condition, vascular condition in my right leg, which sent us all over the world for medical treatment as a child. Lucky enough, treatment's now in Melbourne, a lot closer, but the shopping's not as good. And outside of horses and stuff, I just work in horses these days. Riding instructor, coach, everything you can get your hands into, running events and all sorts. So licorice all sorts is what I am.
The day that we're recording this is Melbourne Cup Day. Have you got anything specially planned for today?
I wish I had, but I actually just haven't had a thought to think. We had our major event on Saturday, so I've been sole focused. We had 4,000 people at our place for a rodeo,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I'm taking Cup Day to have a sleep.
Oh, wow.
Gee
Yeah.
whiz. Noella is it's not just that she is a para athlete. She is a para athlete and is heavily involved in the para space in regards to horses and so forth. And I really encourage you to go and check her out. What's been happening in that world recently?
Well, I started off the year in a really good spot and a really good thing. I ended up with an opportunity to go to England, and I wasn't campaigning for Paris. That wasn't my deal. I'm still not quite at that level, but it was to go over to England and compete and get more experience up my belt, on my belt, one of those analogies. Um, and I went over, I've had a lovely time. I enjoyed driving around England and the countryside, and then got paired with a horse called Dante, beautiful big grey horse, sweet nature, and everything was going really well. We had lots of fun, lots of good adventures. And then sadly, just one day cooling off, I tumbled off over the back, over his tail. No spook, no anything, nothing wrong with from the horse. I just lost my balance and went out the back and landed stump first because I'm an amputee now from the vascular condition. And yeah, landed stump first, broke it in half, broke some ribs, some spinal presses, and my collarbone. So my whole right side was pretty broken there for a fair amount of time. And yeah, so England was fantastic until the sudden bump at the end.
Yeah, we were meant to be doing this podcast back in June, and we had it all scheduled, and we were going to get you on a link from England and talk about
Mm,
how life was going and how exciting it was, and it was when Paris was on, and it was all going to be,
yep.
so exciting, but we had to delay it so you could get back to Australia and have some
Get
surgery.
recovered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get
We
recovered. So yeah,
read
no,
your email and thought, oh my goodness, like to have
definitely
that
the moment.
level of, yeah, fall and injury overseas and then deal with
Yeah,
that then, then get back here.
I definitely didn't understand how having an injury overseas worked. So I'm very glad I went through Flight Centre and I had insurance through all of that because they were just brilliant. They ended up, once we were cleared to fly because of the ribs, they helped us by upgrading us so that I could lay flat the whole flight. So otherwise, I would have no clue how we got home because there was some medical trauma during my time there, and they tried to take a plate out and replace it with another plate, but I really and truly, I was just lucky to be alive. So they didn't get this fracture stabilized. So we had to fly home with a broken leg or a broken stump, I should say. And yeah, we're really
how was the
lucky. We're
pain with that, with the pressure? How was the pressure cap and all that kind of stuff?
medication is really good.
Yeah, green whistle type of thing, huh?
Yeah, not quite. No, just mainstream drugs, which is good. I have a really good ability to control pain and go, well, there's a job to do. I have to get home. So I
Yeah.
tried to stay as calm as possible. We had more hiccups than you could ever have, but every step we just had a cry and went, we're getting closer to being home. So it was lovely to touch down, and then we had another surgery here, and that was a success. So we've had my leg put back together with a giant pin from top to bottom of my femur, which couldn't have been a better outcome. So we'll just keep seeing what goes forward now, and whether horse riding is in my future or not, we're not quite sure, but I'm not going down that path too far because I just need to heal and recover right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, which
sure.
sucks,
Yeah.
but
No,
we'll see.
it's been a very topsy-turvy 2024 for you. So we wish you all the very best for 2025 and hope to see you back up on a horse for sure. But this is a driving podcast, not a horse riding podcast. So we better
Very fair.
Different mode
change
of
the
transport.
topic.
Absolutely.
It is a mode of
More less
transport, but
horsepower. Sure.
yeah, that's right. Um, so talk to us a little bit about your driving journey. Did you get your license as a 16-year-old, and was it typical, or what happened at that first point of call?
Well, that was probably one of the few times that I kind of worked out that I was disabled. I'd always had a disability, so it was quite normal to be different. But yeah, I went out 16, went to Motor Reg, got my license, got my L's, and then it was, you have to drive a modified vehicle. Okay, what does that mean? Because my right leg's affected, I had to have an accelerator put in on the left-hand side, and it just meant that I needed to have my own vehicle to do driving lessons ready for my P plates. So luckily, I have an amazing supportive family because it was before the NDIS that helped me fund a left foot accelerator, and really and truly, I never looked back.
So you learned to drive in your car? Did you do lessons in a driving instructor's car with a left foot accelerator, or you just all learned under
All
your
in my
own
car. Yep,
in your
all in
car?
my car. There was nowhere to get an adaptive vehicle for training purpose. So it was we'll just do lessons in your car and
Were
hope
you
that was
ru- were you rural at that time, or were you in the city centre type of area?
no, so it's up in Strathalbyn still, which is on the edge of being rural. Um yeah, so
But
always up in Strath.
but definitely no modified driving instructor cars out that way. They won't travel out there to do one client here or there. I wouldn't have thought very often.
Yeah, so I don't even know, like personally, I don't even know if there was. I'm assuming there might have been adaptive cars to learn to drive with at that time, but for me and where I was at, 'cause I didn't have an OT, I wasn't in Novita or any of those groups. I never quite fit any of the funding demographics, so I never actually had a guidance all the way through it. It was just, oh, here's a block, we'll fix the block, let's move on. So there might have been access to vehicles, but at that point in time, I didn't know about them.
Yeah, right. So, any issues with learning how to drive or moving through that process? Any licensing issues or anything else like that?
That point in time, no, it just meant I had to do one or two extra driving lessons, not lessons, driving tests. So it was, I had to go down to Regency and do a secondary driving test to make sure that I'm safe driving left foot. But because I'd started left foot, I never found a problem or a difference with it. So
Yeah.
easy for me. Yeah.
Um, but then you needed to look at a different type of license at some point. What can you explain to us what was going on at that point and why you wanted to investigate a different type of modification, and then and unpack that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So that came with, growing up in America and things like that. I had some key things that I wanted to do overseas. And one of those was to go work for a group called Challenge Aspen. And the block always was, I couldn't find a hire vehicle to get started to then go and buy my own vehicle and get a modification. And again, I wasn't really understanding of the world, so I assumed that overseas or other areas didn't have left foot because everything you would Google would only ever tell you about hand controls. So my brain went, right, that means if I want to go overseas and have adventures, or I want to go in state and have adventures but fly, I need to have hand controls. So I got in touch with a few people and a main driving OT, and it became I didn't realize that you can't have two modifications. It really didn't
Not
make
easily. Not easily.
not easily. No, real key people to help you fight it because I couldn't understand why the system didn't understand that I could drive either with my hands or my left foot, not one or the other. To me, I might injure my left foot and I need hand controls versus someone else that is a paraplegic that technically could only have hand controls.
Mm.
But yeah, to me, I never could understand why there was a problem with that.
So what process did you go through? How did you So you wanted to get the hand controls on your license so you could hire cars overseas and go on big adventures. You made that decision. What process did you actually have to go through to try and prove that you could do it?
It was just finding a key person to make that happen. So for me, I just found a good driving OT that was in Adelaide who understood the system a lot better than I did because that's not my deal. I know horses. And it was just meeting up with them, working out what the problem is, working out why there was an issue. They wrote some reports. We argued with it, I suppose, and pushed with it, and until it was okay, let's do a driving assessment, half hand controls and half left. Oh, I speak too quick for my own brain. Half of the lesson ended up, not the lesson, half of the um,
Driving test.
thank you. I have brain dead. Half of the driving test was drive left foot and show us how you can do that safely. And then the other half was stop, change the gears over to be hand control, and let's see if you're safe. And they'll take it back to the state level and see what is allowed. And with that support of the OTs behind me, I ended up being the first, and I'm not sure if maybe the only person with dual controls on a license.
Yeah, it's a
What?
fascinating story because I've had other people come to me before telling me that they can't find a hire car overseas or when they travel to Queensland or go on holidays when they fly on a plane. There's just no cars with left foot accelerators around. I think that's maybe changing with Total Ability now, looking to help people out in this space. And there's maybe a few cars here or there, but yeah, there is the option of hand controls more readily available. So
And
it's a
what
very
type of
interesting
hand
process.
controls did you get your license with, Noella?
Well, with guidance from the driving OT, it was let's just go for the standard push turn lever action. I'm not sure. I'm sure you guys can tell me the technical name, because you kind of assume that hand controls wouldn't have a
Yeah.
overring or a
Mhm.
Bluetooth accelerator or anything like that. So we just
Yeah.
went for the stock standard.
Yeah.
um, because I don't have any limitations in my arm, so that wasn't
Mm.
actually a worry for us. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, something
Uh,
that's a bit more
And what's the
generic
process
makes
with?
sense.
mm.
Yeah. So I haven't really explored like the with many of my own clients like their experiences with hiring cars with hand controls. So can you tell us about that side of things?
So like Brad said, yeah, there's a few groups now that are slowly getting bigger and bigger. It's better than it was, say, 5, 10 years ago, but
Mm.
it's such a limited thing. I feel that COVID had a really big hit on that, because quite a
Mm.
few um, just the standard groups like Budget and Hertz and that had 1 to 2 cars. But now I can only get 1 car in Melbourne. I haven't found
Mm.
anywhere in Queensland other than like in the generic space. If there's special
Mm.
businesses that are doing it, you can find things, but still, it's more for people in wheelchairs that need a driver. So I still can't drive
Yeah.
those cars. It might
Yeah.
be um, a wheeled in seat. So I still can't drive those cars because I don't sit in my personal wheelchair, etc.,
Mm.
etc. So I suppose because left foot accelerator is such a simple mod, it's almost half forgotten about sometimes. And personally, it could be in majority of hire cars with no issue,
Mm.
especially with electronics these days. I've only had 1 car.
The hand control was on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Have
so hand controls for me have always been on the right hand side of the vehicle, which I've learnt is not the best way to have hand controls, but it's what I've got, and so it's what I'll adapt to. Yeah.
is have you been able to hire a car since?
Yeah. So Melbourne has one vehicle. They had
Yep.
a nice Ford wagon, which was brilliant because so much space when you had wheelchairs.
Yeah.
And then 2021, I went over with a girlfriend of mine. She's actually been on your podcast, Leaning, and I went over to Melbourne and we were both in our chairs and we're like, let's go do a little adventure because I know I can get a hire car. She's like, you can drive in Melbourne. I went, that's fair. I'm good with Melbourne. And yeah, they changed vehicles because of course they update. That's what they do. And we couldn't fit two suitcases and two wheelchairs in it. And I
Oh.
went, you might want to double check and think about what car you are having for your one hand control vehicle.
Mm.
And they all just kind of looked at me blankly because that, of course, wouldn't have been a decision those people on the ground would have made. It would have been a higher up along the line. But again, we adapt, we overcome. Just when I had to hop a little bit further, that's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Um, did you so you were able to go on your adventure? You didn't lose a
Yeah.
suitcase, you didn't lose a wheelchair?
No,
Oh,
and no
cool.
broken no broken wheelchairs or anything like that. I was like, I had so many mental backup plans to go, and we didn't need to use any of them. We went over to Ability Fest, had a blast. This was,
Oh,
yeah, like I said, a
awesome.
few years ago. It was a very cool event to go to. Like, I don't know. I feel like accessibility should just be standard because, of course,
Yeah.
we have to just deal with being half thought about all the time. So to go to a group like Ability Fest in a hire car that's with adapted hand controls, you go, look, the world's actually finally catching up to us, which is
Yeah.
lovely. Mm.
That's so
Fantastic.
nice. So nice to
Fantastic.
hear.
Hey, I've got an unscripted question. Um, the you're into horse, equestrian, and so forth. How do you manage the float, and how do you manage every other aspect of transporting horses and all of the equipment that goes with that? You were talking about equipment and getting it in the back of a car, and I'm just going, what about all the other equipment? How does that part of your world work?
Well, not meaning to diss on NDIS, but I did have to fight fairly hard to say that I need a tow vehicle because they're like, no, you need to have a van, you have a wheelchair. Sorry, I don't fit that bracket of people. Vans don't typically tow enough for the horses that we have and the things that we need to take with us. So for years, I always had a smaller ute and a smaller float, like an old Ford RTV, beast of a car. Considering its size, it could tow very, very well. You always update the brakes. You always do the things so that you're safe. And I had a little float, and it really didn't matter because I was able enough to, and it will scare any of the OTs out there, but I would put my mobility scooter on the back of my tray with a box that had all of my horse gear on it. So all the horse gear would go to the tray, then I'd get on the tray. All of that would then go into this giant box that I'd strap it all down and load the ponies because I was quite able even on crutches, and away you'd go for your adventure, whether it was an hour down the road to Pony Club or it was all the way to Marunda in New South Wales for a Stopman's Challenge. You just got on the road. We're very much those sorts of people. Doesn't matter how far it is. It just you take a day to get there and away you go. Um, but then, abilities change, things adjust. So I actually had some modifications. We built a float actually with a local builder in Australia, and he and I and my mum worked out exactly what we needed, and we've actually got it that the scooter goes in the float now. So yes, it still goes up tracks. Yes, it is still manually walking next to it, loading it, which some people say isn't safe, but it is safer than trying to put it on a high tray. And we built it so that there is a wall between the horses and the scooter, and there are tie downs in the floor. Many of us, and I've done it in the past, you put a horse and a scooter in a with a bays separation, bay as in like a horse width apart.
Mm.
And for years we just traveled like that. And then, you start realizing that if you do have an accident or when you have an accident, really not good. So hence why it got moved to the back of the ute. It's what I had at the time. Now I have a tray ute, and now it's got a 3-inch lift, so it's even harder to get on. So that's why I'm lucky to have a float that takes my scooter for me. But yeah, I don't know. You just have what you have and make it work, and yeah.
Do you use that mobility scooter when you're at events like that? Is that what you tend to get used to get around? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The venues are so big and vast.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to mentally go, you know what, I am disabled and I do have fatigue. Many of us always fight that. I think that's just pretty standard for anyone. And mobility scooters meant that I could save that extra 20% and use it in the arena for the competition.
Yeah.
It also meant that I could be helpful because I can't carry a bale of hay, but I could put the bale of hay on the scooter.
Yeah.
Or it turns into the tack shed, and the headrest has got the saddle and the mirrors have got a bridle hook and the footwell's got, yeah, it's either got my grooming kit or it's got the dog. And then myself and a friend of ours, we'd go together, and she and I'd have a butt cheek each on the seat and a horse side walking our horses, while our support crews would be cleaning our yards because we wouldn't necessarily have the energy for one or the other. We couldn't walk as far, so you know we'd use the scooters to help us more and more, and it's just a stock standard thing now.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
You're also caring for your body too, right? Like you've got to think about that longevity, and everyone's always getting older.
Yeah.
Yeah, that future planning bit. Like, have you kind of thought about, I don't know, what 10 years looks like, what 20 years looks like?
What next year looks like at the moment.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
true
think,
for a year that you've had this year.
to be honest, I don't think I have until this fall. This
Yeah.
fall's really actually given me a different perspective. There's, you know, there was discussions on how many more times can we actually put the leg back together. This is my third fracture in this leg. First time as an amputee. It's a lot easier fracturing it as an amputee than it ever was having the leg attached. The recovery is going to be quicker. Things are different this time, but it has made me sit up and go, should I be a rider? Should I be as adventurous and out there as I am? And how do I tame myself without losing myself?
Oh man, what a question.
Yeah, it sucks. I haven't found the answer yet.
Oh man, I hope you can find something that suits for you.
Yeah. That's why you do lovely psychology work and you have all the team and all the structures so that you can, make sure you survive this crazy world that we're all in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, sorry, I've still got another question, Brad.
Yeah, keep going.
With your rehab now, like post this fall and this recovery, are you back to walking with a prosthetic leg?
Not yet. So I did fall off end of mid-July, I reckon it was. June, July, I fell off. Can't remember, to be honest. It all goes into a blur bubble. We didn't get back to Australia till the 23rd of August. Happened to be my mum's birthday. I'm like, let me just ruin your birthday even further. But anyway, we got her a business class seat. So I'm like, hopefully that made it up for the trauma that we'd just gone through. But
With you?
hey.
She was with you when you had the fall?
Luckily, yeah. So she'd actually come over to England with one of our riders that we've had for many years. She had made it to an Australian team for Virtus, which is for athletes with an intellectual impairment or intellectual disability. I shouldn't use impairment; that's inappropriate. So yeah, Virtus is a newer side of sport for those people, and then equine and horses started last year. The family I was living with in England happened to be one of the main instigators. So I was helping running this event over there, the Open Regional Virtus Championships. So I was actually on the organizing committee. We decided to take our horses, so we kept them fit. Mum and my other trainer, Esther, they had both flown in to be coach and trainer for this rider over there. So everyone was in the right place at the right time. And we thought it was more for that rider. And then I fell off. And yeah, whoops. I don't like being the center of attention, but I seem to keep pulling it towards me. So anyway, that rider did really well to cope with having me fall off and do all sorts of drastic things. So she went on to compete well. My mum was impressive. She, would come and see me when she could in visiting hours and then would go back to the comp and stayed on task because, what are you going to do? Sit by and watch your daughter or actually go and continue to support. So she did both, which is very, and with the arrogance of the UK doctors and such like that, I was blessed to have her on my side because I don't even know how to go into that at this stage. So, yeah,
How
it was a
good
lot.
are mums? How good are mums? Mums have come
Yeah.
up in this podcast so much,
Yeah.
and mums are amazing. So, shout out to all the mums that are out there that help support people with disabilities. They come up over and over and over again. The question I was going to ask before, I'm going to jump in now. The question I was going to ask before, I'm listening to your story, and I'm sure someone's going to go, well, hang on, wait a minute. She's talked about an amputation halfway through this process.
Yeah.
How, and how have you made the decision? Did you make the decision, or was it enforced upon you to have so you started driving with your right leg, but figured out that your right leg wasn't able to do it. And then somewhere along there, you've mentioned that you've had an amputation and you're learning to, you've cracked the stump and you are hoping to learn to walk on it again. There's a big chunk in there. What just for the people listening, how does that decision get made, or was it forced upon you?
Yeah, that's a really fair point. Good pick up there, Brad, because I kind of forget. I have 30 years of, or just over 30 years of stories to tell, and every single year has been a big year. It doesn't really matter what year you pick. There's normally something that's gone on pretty major for medical reasons. I've had a few quiet years, but anyway, apparently not 2024. So like I said at the start, I was born with a vascular condition. It runs, I'm not sure. It ran from my toe to my hip, so it's still in half of it. Anyway, confused. So yeah, I had a whole leg. It was all affected with the vascular condition. We traveled to the US for treatment. The treatment saved my life because at that point in time, a small bump would have given me a bleed out. And then that point in time, I was falling off my pony and had my trainer wheels off my push bike. And then all of a sudden, we got told that a small bump would kill me or could kill me. And all of a sudden, I was a kid that was parked on the couch and said to, here's some crafts instead. Life went forward. As things went on, my leg became more disabled. So I transitioned to crutches probably around the age of like 9 or 10. And then that went on to forearm crutches, which I was on for every other year until just before I had my fall. And I broke my leg in 2018. I'd had pins in the femur from a childhood fracture, and I fell in a doorway, and my knee didn't bend, so my femur did, and then I ended up with some negligence, some issues, and I was bent and broken for 3 months before we found a surgeon willing to touch it. Can understand that. Don't get me wrong. And met Luke Johnson, who's at Flinders, and he's a lifesaver. He's a limb salvage specialist, so he works with cancer patients and works on how do we keep you going as long as you can? And I don't know, I spent the next 3, 4 years not understanding how depressed I was and how much I wasn't coping. That fracture really changed my abilities. I went from, riding bareback and jumping horses and being a very independent human. I just had crutches on my arms to do it. I'd went to college and did a degree, and I traveled internationally by myself, uh, etc., etc. So I'd always achieved, and then all of a sudden I couldn't ride a horse again because my body had changed shape so much. I was quite twisted, and my knee took a lot of brunt through all of that. And over the next 4 years of seeing Luke, going in to have appointments, he'd go, Chook, there's nothing more to do. There's nothing more to do. And I'd just cry at him, and we'd leave the office and you'd just get back to normal life and you'd just shut that away and get on with it. And then one day he went, all I've got left is to amputate. And I was calm. I was mentally, physically calm. We'd talked about amputation previously, but it was never quite felt right. And that appointment, I went, yes. And Mum went, yeah, I can see it's time. And so then we just had to wait for COVID to change all the systems so it wasn't elective surgery. And 2022, September 2022, we had Stumpy born. We had the leg gone, and yeah, ever since it hasn't, yeah, it really hasn't stopped me. All of a sudden, I could sit in the back seat of a car for the first time in years, and I could sit on the floor and get up, and it was all the simple things. It took me a long time to get to prosthetics because my stump didn't want to heal. But ever since I met Peggy, it's my leg, of course, because you can't not have names for everything. Away we went, really and truly. So I was only on a prosthetic not even a year before I took off to England. So I didn't even
How
own one at that point in time.
how big is Peggy? What level of amputation have you got?
I'm above knee.
Above
Yeah.
knee. Yeah,
But
right.
I'm very much a long femur, so I'm very close to the femur head. So it means that my knees don't bend at the same point, meaning that I have to take Peggy off to sit in the back seat now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have an electronic knee, or is it you do? So you've got an electronic knee,
We
and
fought. We fought hard for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
is that an Autobot Genium, or what have you got?
I went with the Quattro. Oh, I can't even think what the next word is. Quattro something or other. Google it. Sorry.
That's all
Don't
right.
stress.
But
People can get in touch with me.
does it have a? Sorry, what is it?
Quattro Pro, Quattro something or other. Yeah.
This is a new one for me. Do they have a settable knee? Can you set it at certain angles?
Mm-hmm. I had a key driving instructor make sure that I got a microprocessor knee so I can add another form of adaptation to my license maybe
I
in the
I can
future.
see it coming, Noella. I can see it coming that you
coming.
will have
Wow,
left foot
really?
accelerator, hand controls, and driving with prosthetic. That's an adventure to be had.
That's now it's down the track a little bit further than I intended, but that's all right.
No
Um,
way.
let's see if they freak out again, adding another version of my driving to it.
I'm sure if anyone could do it, it's going to be you, Noella. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to your story. Have you got any advice to anyone that would want to consider a dual license? And have you got any tips or pointers that people should really know about?
I think it's just the who you know. It's finding that OT that understands that part of governments and things like that. So if you're wanting to modify your house, find someone that's really good at understanding the house rules. If you're needing driving, find someone that's a true good driving OT, and or is very good at NDIS, I suppose. I don't know. Biggest tip, don't let them stop you. if you can. I'm sure there are some versions of disabilities out there that can't. That's not a negative. That's just reality for us. But if you feel that you can, find the team so that you can make it happen. Don't stop.
I think that's a really good tip for all of life, isn't it? If you feel like you can, find the team that can help you get it done.
Absolutely.
Before we wind up and ask you our final question, we're just going to hear from our sponsors that make this show possible.
Williams Occupational Therapy focus their attention on helping people with their mobility needs. From driving to wheelchairs, Williams OT provides help to get people mobile.
Noella, it's been so lovely to have you as our guest today on the Drive Able podcast. Your story's just incredible, like what you had to deal with in your life, and like you said, you've just not let it stop you and found ways around using a great support team, and that's why OTs do what we do. So to hear these amazing stories, so that's the testimonial to you though that you've had that the guts to and done the work, right, to get where you've got. So congratulations. Good luck with the rest of your recovery.
Thank you. It's needed.
And a better year next year. That would be nice. But we're going to finish up with our favourite question that we wrap up with every guest that we have on our podcast. So we've learned that cars are not just about getting from A to B, but there's so much more that that they let us do, and that they have special meaning for us. Have you got a story that you're able to tell us where a car was special for you? A special trip, a special event, an amazing memory?
Well, I don't know, it might just be a little bit more boring compared to the rest of my stories, but I've got two. One's being going to England, because they have multiple companies over there that are hire vehicles. And I went and I said, I need a left foot. And they went, yeah, no worries. So I had a hire car for the whole 4 months I was there. Like, to me, that is beyond amazing and such a cool experience. I hit the ground and I had 3 days without a vehicle. And then it was straight into being able to live a normal life and being able to be accessible. So shout out to Angel Vehicle Hire in the UK. Amazing. And even when I had a crash, because as in crash as my horse, not the car. No, I'm not that crazy. No, when I fell off my horse, there we go. They were amazing. They just adjusted the insurance so my mum could continue to drive the vehicle until they were able to come and pick it up. They dropped it off, the whole works and jerks. But probably one of the simplest yet craziest little adventures that I had was when I was in America, and it was probably, now I'm thinking of it, it's probably what made me go, I could get hand controls. This could be another avenue. This could be another open door for me. A girlfriend of ours over there, she's been a paraplegic for many years. Of course, she has hand controls. And I wanted to go over and work at a group over there. And I just kept getting mentally blocked by not having a vehicle. Anyway, we happened to be in the middle of Colorado, which is a beautiful place. Always go there. Don't just stay on the east and west coast. Go to Colorado. Stunning. And we went down the street for a, cafe catch up or whatever. And then she goes around and she gets in the passenger's seat. And probably shouldn't say all this because it's not illegal. But she went, and again, it's just having those right humans by you that just go, no, you can do this. And she stuck me in a driver's seat in America on the other side of the road, which I, of course, never had driven because, one, I was a kid, and then two, when I was old enough, there weren't hire cars. And so I'm learning to drive hand controls on the wrong side of the road. But it was the most freeing thing I'd ever done. I just went, this is cool. Like, there's more ways to drive than just the standard way. And yeah, anyway, it's one of those things that lives with me, and it just gives me the energy to push through and make the next thing happen. It's those sorts of things. So I don't know. That's my silly story.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
They're
such
lovely
a
stories.
great
Yeah.
story. Such a
Yeah.
great story. And it shows how we've got to this point in the podcast. Hey, just going back on the last little bit, NDIS, please go and learn about the Motability Scheme. The Motability Scheme in the UK is amazing.
Yes.
And why there are things like more hire cars available in the UK. The Motability Scheme in the UK is something that should so be introduced as part of the NDIS in Australia. It's just makes sense. If you don't know, we haven't got time to unpack the Motability Scheme. It'd be worth doing a podcast about it. But yeah, let's save that for another podcast and go and Google it in between. A massive shout out to you, Noella. It's been a wonderful, wonderful episode. It's been great to talk to you and listen to your adventures, and hopefully there's many, many, many more adventures to come, and you're back up on your legs very soon, and back up on a horse, fingers crossed, and reaching your goals that you wanna do.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, that's all right. If our listeners want to learn more about you and people, you have to go and look her up. There's so much great stuff. If people want to learn from you, where can they get in contact with you, or where can they come and see some of your things?
Yeah, so one good thing about having a bit of downtime is I finally got around to building my website. So www.noellaangel.com. Which will then take you to all my socials because I'm very good at forgetting those. But it's pretty much Noella Angel Para Athlete, and both on Instagram and Facebook. So go find me and have a chat. I'd love to talk to anyone. And because of different OTs in my life and where I'm at in my own scenario, I'm actually applied for university and hopefully we'll get into OT next year. So fingers crossed. You'll have another OT up your sleeve, and always had this little dream of teaching others how to drive, but more towards towing and being safe and animal handling and that side of things. So I like to be able to brag that I can back a trailer, anywhere, and I want other girls to be able to have that power.
Noella, the OT industry would be better off having you in it. So wish you all the very best. And
thank you.
Fingers crossed you get in, and the world will be.
We certainly know where you can go and do a placement, right?
That's
got a few up the sleeve.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Noella, for coming on. It's been a lovely chat, and yeah, we will see you hopefully out on the road real soon. Or can you do that at the moment? Can you drive?
I'm now back down off of medication, so yeah, I'm back driving.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll see you on the road real soon. That's great.
Thanks so much,
Noella. Bye, guys.
Driving Well Occupational Therapy loves working with people of all ages and with all kinds of medical conditions to safely give them the opportunity to explore their driving goals. As we wind up this episode, please remember that the advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. For your specific situation, you will need to get in contact with your local OT, vehicle modifier or mobility dealer and set yourself up with an assessment or trial. Trials really do put you in that driver's seat. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @DriveAblePodcast for more information.